Well, hi there, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Rusty, and this is me channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and sometimes my favorite music, mostly metal. And tonight we're going to be talking about something I'm very, very excited about. Um, it's a 10-hour long slasher movie. 10 hours long. It's actually a miniseries, and it's called The Alienist. Now, I can't tell you how excited I was to get this. I first, when I first heard that they were making this, I was like, no, they cannot make this a movie. And then I was told, no, 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 it's a miniseries. I'm like, okay, but how could they make it a miniseries? It's too gory and disturbing. They were like, no, 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 it's a cable channel, and it's going to be hard R. I'm like, oh, okay, wow. Now, the reason I was so excited was because when the book first came out, it's a book called The Alienist by Caleb Carr. And when that book first came out, I bought it and I read it, and I was mesmerized and disturbed and disgusted and everything else. I mean, it's a fantastic horror novel, but it also kind of doubles as a crime mystery novel. What The Alienist is basically a 10-hour long Jack the Ripper type slasher miniseries. There's 10 episodes at an hour apiece, and yeah, so let's get into it now. First of all, what is an alienist? Okay, this series is set in 1896. Now, in the 1880s, 1890s, the the field of psychiatry and psychology, psychiatrists, psychologists, and especially forensic psychologists and psychiatrists was a new thing that was just emerging. Now, people back then who had psychological or mental illnesses or disturbances, they were thought to be or described as being alienated from their natural normal selves, because the natural normal self isn't going out and cutting up people. So if you had a mental disorder or a psychological disorder, you were thought to be alienated from your true self. So the people who studied that, and it was the emerging field of psychiatric and psychologists who wanted to learn about the human mind and psychology and help people. So you had the first psychologists coming onto the scene and actually working with police, trying to, give people therapy and things like that. And these people were called alienists because their whole point was to try to identify and correct your alienation from your true nature. So that's where the term alienist came from. And this movie is called The Alienist because that's what it's centered around. You have, it was released in 2018, and it stars Daniel Brühl, Dakota Fanning, and Luke Evans. Now, Daniel Brühl is the one who plays Dr. Lasgo, the alienist. And he is basically called, he is called by the police and told that he overhears it, that something really horrible had been discovered. And that was the body of a young male prostitute who was horribly but ritualistically mutilated in New York City. So he calls his assistant, who was played by Luke Evans, his name is John, and he tells him to get there while he gets there because they want to look at the body. And they get there and they look at the body, and this is how it all begins. This is how the story begins. Um, Dakota Fanning, she plays one of the very first, as a matter of fact, in New York, she is the very first female who has been hired onto the police force. So she's actually a cop. She's the first female cop that, and of course she's still relegated to, well, she's a cop, but, she kind of performs secretarial type duties. But she's still a full-fledged police officer. And it's the first one. So she and John know each other from the past. And he ends up contacting her about what's the deal with this murder. And that's how Dr. Laszlo, who is extremely interested in this. I mean, the dude has some problems of his own, as most psychiatrists and psychologists do. And that's how it begins. So Theodore Roosevelt, before he becomes president, is the police commissioner in 18. So he's very young. And he is the police commissioner. And of course you have to deal with the corruption at the time, which is part of the story. So Laszlo, John, and Sarah, under the don't tell anybody direction of Theodore Roosevelt, is told to form a team and try to solve this, because although no one else cares, the police doesn't care. No one cares because this serial killer, which is a new term, and this is one of the first ones, his victims are young male prostitutes. So if you think that no one cares about female prostitutes like Jack the Ripper, you can imagine how little they cared about male prostitutes. So the police sort of kind of like sweep it under the rug. They don't really care because it's just a bunch of insert offensive names here that is being killed. So it's not exactly a priority. As a matter of fact, they wish it would just go away. But Theodore Roosevelt, he is a very nice guy, and he does not want to see these basically kids being butchered in this way. And let me tell you, this series has some of the most disturbing murder scenes. It's like Jack the Ripper for real. I mean, and they don't... It's definitely hard R, if you know what I'm saying. They don't really show the attacks because to show the attack at the beginning, because to show the attack would let you know who or what is doing this, and that's part of the mystery. But it's alright, they don't need to show it, okay? Because they show what's left, and it's very disturbing. Now later on in the series, they do show, towards the end, as they have begun to zone in on who this killer is, they do show a couple of attacks, and like the one in the bathhouse, it's, like the YMCA, that was, and I'm a horror buff, of course, and I was extremely disturbed. The noises that was being made as this guy kills this kid was just, it's disturbing. It's a very disturbing show, and it is, if anybody has watched my channel, you know that I like long movies. I don't like short movies. um, unlike the attention deficit disorder that everyone seems to have today, which is why I'm going to try to start shortening my videos. Um, but I am not that way. I like it, you know, if I find out a movie's 3 hours long, I'm more than thrilled as long as it's good. So we're talking about a 10-hour slasher, Jack the Ripper type slasher, with some absolutely brutal kill scenes, some very, very intense and engaging uh, crime investigation as these three people, and they also get a couple of forensic guys, anatomy guys, to join the team. So it's basically five of them, and under the tutelage and help of Theodore Roosevelt to try to get this solved quietly and under the table. So, not only do you get to see the most fascinating infiltration of what 1896. Well, it's weird because you get to see like a part of the gay community, which is kind of for that. I remember reading the book, going, I had no idea that there were gay bars in 1896 in New York that the cops knew about, but of course they just made money off of it. Um, and this is before the mob and stuff. So the Alienist is extremely fascinating because of that kind of stuff. To the cinematography is 100% perfection, um, because you really feel like you're in that time frame in New York, and to get to see how people lived so accurately depicted, um, as they infiltrate the male prostitution situation, juvenile male prostitution situation, um, as they infiltrate that. You also get to see how the police force worked as they infiltrate this extremely corrupt, bigoted, racist, everything police force. So the movie is just phenomenal. I could not take my eyes off of it. Um, and that's the reason why I paid a nice healthy amount to get my hands on this. Now they did make a second season, but I haven't seen it. 'Cause, I mean, the two seasons are a completely story, and I didn't really care much for the storyline of the second one. So each season is basically a 10-hour movie, and this is absolutely phenomenal. Towards the end, like I said, they do start zoning in on our killer, who is a guy named John Beecham. Um, they discover that in the Civil War, well, first he was raised by a religious preacher and severely abused. Yeah, I'm not surprised either. And then he was abused by the people that he tried to help stop the abuse from his parents, and ended up being even more abused, and then went out and fought in the West, the cavalry against the Native Americans, and the things that he witnessed destroyed his mind. What little was left after he already had it, a terrible life. Now he had to deal with what he was exposed to. So he is brutally murdering. It's very Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper killed female prostitutes. This guy is killing young male prostitutes. And like I said, once they kind of start figuring out who it is, which is an extremely fun and engaging ride as they figure out and track down this person. Because remember, we're not talking about 2022. We're talking about fucking 1896. This is not exactly the internet and DNA here. So having to figure this out is an amazing thing to watch. Like I said, it is a horror movie. There is brutal, brutal killings, um, lots of gore. Um, this movie made me cry. It made me sad. It scared the shit out of me, especially a couple of the kill scenes. That one in that kill scene that's the one you're gonna look for, man, because that kill scene in the what today we would call the YMCA. Um, that I guess he was about 16 or 17, the victim. Um, that murder, because by then you had found out what this guy was all about, and their discovery. This is towards the very end, um, and yeah, that's when he kidnaps the last one. Um, so this kill, you have heard. Not only have you seen probably 9 hours, 8.5 hours of this show, but you have heard and seen all of the evidence, all of the death scenes, all of the autopsies. You have heard what this guy has been doing. Then they finally show you him doing it. So not only do you have all of this information already in your head, but you have to actually witness an actual attack as opposed to just seeing the aftermath and having all of these descriptions and dead bodies and everything that you've seen. That is one of the most disturbing scenes in a horror movie that I've ever seen. Is the that pool scene and the kill scene at that what we call today at the YMCA. So it's there that he also kidnaps this little prostitute that actually John had become very, very fatherly towards and wanted him off the street and things like that. And he is the one that is kidnapped, leading to the final climax, which is pretty intense. And there is no resolution for poor Laszlo there. Like I said, I'm leaving a great deal out because I'm going to try to um, change this format some to where my videos are shorter and I can do more movies. So, um, yeah, the final climax is just an amazing cinematography piece of work. And unfortunately, our Laszlo, who we have absolutely fallen in love with as a character, he gets no satisfaction because he ends up being killed. John Beecham, the killer, they end up saving the boy, killing him, and Laszlo is just destroyed by that because he has spent a year finding this crazy person, and his whole intention was he needs to know why. That's what leads all psychiatrists and psychologists. He needs to know why, and he wants to understand, and he wants to study, and instead he doesn't get to do any of that. Questions unanswered. All you can do is think, why did he do this? So it was disappointing for him, but after everything that you had seen John Beecham do, you wanted him dead. Very, very dead. And I don't really care whether anybody studied him or not. Of course, back then they actually kept people in prison that deserved to be in prison instead of letting psychos loose like they do today to go and kill other people on parole and stuff. But we'll leave that alone. So yeah, if you've never heard of the Alienist, you should go watch the trailer, and you could read the book, which is phenomenal. This is very, very, very well done as far as translating the book to this series. I'd read the book multiple times, and everything that needed to be in this was in this. And so they did an excellent job. I think it was TNT who did it. They did an excellent job. I believe Caleb Carr helped. And that's weird. They don't have a director or a writer on it. That's unusual for International Movie Database. But I know that Caleb Carr was there and helped them translate the book to this series. So if you like slashers and mixed with a Jack the Ripper type mystery, you would definitely love this. Check it out. And yeah, so that's 2018's The Alienist, starring Daniel Brühl, Dakota Fanning, and Luke Evans. Everything about it was flawless. This is a 10 out of 10 to me, as I have it rated. And you should love it. If you're into slashers with a little mystery, this will definitely satisfy. And especially a period. You know, it's not a modern setting. It's a turn of the century setting. So to get to see a horror movie that is set in, 1896 is pretty unique in and of itself. So, yeah. That's The Alienist, and I hope you check it out. I cannot recommend it enough. Find it, get it, watch it, and be prepared to be very disturbed on many levels about many things. So, I will see you in the next one. And always remember and never forget, you're a wonderful, very special individual. And don't let anyone ever tell you anything different or make you feel any different. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you for stopping by and checking it out. Love you, miss you, bye-bye. And please tell me if you've seen this or what you think about it in the comments if you have the time. And yeah, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.